So I'm Sharon Brown, Distribution Marketing Director at Miles Smith, and we're the appointed broker to the Cooperative Insurance Group, who are one of your main sponsors. One of my colleagues puts very nicely, in a nutshell, what we do. We sell sleep. We give you the assurances that the risks you don't want to take on as a business are covered. And James alluded to this about females being quite risk averse. So that's what we're here to do. We're here to help you provide that reassurance. So the insurance world, until recently, has been very much a blue job, especially Lloyd's London, which is where my career started when I was 16 years old. I worked for a national Lloyd's broker. Lloyd's was a really tough environment for women, especially in the 1990s. We were few and far between and really not very well respected. So it wasn't actually until 1972, a year before I was born, that women were allowed on the underwriting floor. But in 2013, after 325 years, it had its first female boss, a lady called Inga Beale. Absolutely brilliant lady. And that was a massive leap forward for women in insurance. So being a woman in a heavily male-populated environment wasn't actually without its plus points. So I would go into Lloyd's and I should have had a trolley, massive big pile of folders that needed signing by the underwriter. So I'd have to negotiate the risk and get him to sign off that he was happy to take that risk on board. So I'd have 10 of my male colleagues in front of me. And I'd kind of put my head around and I'd hear, McNeely, which was my maiden name, lunch. So I'd say, yes, sir. And he would then close the box for an hour and a half. We would have a liquid lunch. I would have all my files scratched. Male fellow colleagues weren't disheartened by this because he would be slightly inebriated by the time he got back, which would mean he was a little looser with his pen and he would sign off all the files. So everyone was a winner. Things haven't really changed that much. So I had my first child, Oliver, in 1995. And sadly, a few days afterwards, I lost my dad to cancer. So he was a massive influence on my career and the direction it then took. He needed massage to help him reduce the fluid in his limbs. He had liver cancer, and I ended up being quite the nurse. So he made me promise that I would use my hands-on skills for others. So my son was born, and he had a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which meant he was seriously hypermobile, to the point, if I changed his nappy and pulled him by the arms, I would dislocate both of his shoulders. So it wasn't particularly pleasant. So the condition unfortunately got worse, and I was advised that it wasn't a good idea for me to have any more children, so I had another. So I fell pregnant with Lauren, and I was told she had a 90% chance of getting the same thing. So I decided, I'm not going to go back to the city, I'm going to retrain, I'm going to be a sports therapist. And it actually turned out I was quite good at it. So I started working with Premiership football clubs. I worked with Arsenal, Chelsea, Portsmouth. I did do a little bit of work with my kids. And I'm glad to say that now they're really, really fit and healthy and don't really have very many problems. So I started to work with Twickenham and the England squad and Saxons. Again, a hugely male-dominated environment. And for the majority of the time, I was treated with the utmost respect. And on occasion, I wasn't. But this experience gave me some really powerful tools later in my career when I eventually got to the boardroom. So my career then developed and turned full circle, really back to the world of insurance, where I joined my experience of insurance with injury risk management. It was an interesting period because I then started to define rehabilitation programs for large insurance companies such as WIBA, define protocols for whiplash injuries and employers' liability claims. So in 2011, I was fortunate enough to join Miles Smith, and I created a product for them to help in injury absence management. I created an early intervention scheme, and it's been utilised by hundreds of companies who've returned employees back to work who were absent due to musculoskeletal or mental ill health problems. So we use physio and counselling, and just recently, Aviva has asked me to license this product to them so that they can fill the gap in the insurance market. Ka-ching! Quite happy about that. So staying kind of on the theme of mental health, I do want to let you into one of my innermost secrets. So I was asked to do this speech, and of course I'm filled The room's filled with very, very intelligent women and the odd man. You're odd. You're not odd. It's fine. So that familiar feeling comes over me. And I'm thinking, oh, what can I talk about? These are hugely intelligent ladies. What can I add? Aside from a mildly interesting career, I mean, I can talk to you about rugby players and footballers, and we'll do that later. What can you learn from me? I'm not an expert in anything. In fact, I don't really know much about anything. So I have an all too common affliction, self-doubt, imposter syndrome. It's been probably talked about in the press recently, but imposter syndrome can be defined as a collection of feelings of inadequacy that persist even in the face of information that indicates that the opposite is true. It's experienced internally as a chronic self-doubt and feelings of intellectual fraudulence. It's basically a feeling that you're not really successful, competent and smart, you're only imposing as such, a phenomenon whereby successful women have high levels of self-doubt, but we're really only starting to look at the psychology behind it. So millions of people, men and women, but actually mainly women, are affected by this. So Tina Fey, as you saw, Facebook's Chief Operating Officer Sheryl Sandberg, actress Emma Watson, Kate Winslet, Renée Zellweger. We're not alone. And this month, Senna O'Neill, she's an 18-year-old blogger, 612,000 followers on Instagram, deleted her account, outing herself as an imposter and admitting that her perfect lifestyle often took hours and the financial backing of corporate banks to achieve. So there's been some new research that Ghent University found that rather than working harder to prove our abilities, sufferers actually bury themselves in tasks, avoiding extra responsibility. They become trapped in the imposter syndrome cycle, feeling phony but too afraid of being unmasked as a phony to do anything about it. We are so worried about how others perceive us. I walked up here today and I thought, God, I've been looking at my hair and going, gosh, she could have brushed it. We're so worried about how others perceive us. We overlook our successes and we really do build a flawed picture of our careers. So James talked about his daughter Ava earlier, and instilling confidence in an 8-year-old is fantastic. And for young women, this research can't come soon enough. Girls are achieving more than ever, regularly outperforming boys at school and at university, yet they still feel they don't belong. A recent study for Institute of Fiscal Studies put the gender pay gap for graduates in the 10 years after leaving uni at around 23%. Ouch. This goes well beyond false modesty. It comes down to confidence. Countless pieces of research have told us that women undervalue themselves. It's why we're so poor at asking for pay rises. It's why we don't go for that new job unless we're absolutely certain that we're qualified to do it, where men just wing it. We're so worried about how others perceive us and overlook our successes. We build up a flawed picture of our careers. I think that the key to beating imposter syndrome is share your fears. Once you put your hand up and admit to feeling this way, you can bet others will too. I'm not an expert in imposter syndrome, but I'm going to assume that a small number of you can empathise with me. To quote the famous song lyrics of Kanye West, more women are in bigger roles than ever before. With better opportunities than ever before. And we're climbing the career ladder faster than ever before. We're fostering a culture of self-confidence that needs to start with women supporting other women. We're stronger together, and with access to amazing support networks like Forward Ladies, we will thrive in business. Good luck to all the finalists today, and thank you.